Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/Malicious Compliance. In today's episode, my appointment was cancelled for being 5 minutes late? I guess I have to reschedule. Opa's potatoes. I will report every bathroom break, of course. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. My appointment was cancelled for being 5 minutes late? I guess I have to reschedule. This happened about 4 years ago, when I got a summer job at my university. The job was working for professors that I had worked with before, and they asked me last minute to teach a summer workshop to 9th and 10th graders. So with less than 2 weeks before the camp starts, I have a bunch of paperwork to do first, including clearances that say I can work with kids. One of these is an official FBI check for which they need my fingerprints. Well, I needed to do the physical fingerprinting right away in order to get the result in time. Luckily, I was able to book a fingerprinting appointment for that Friday, booked 24 hours in advance, as required, which would be just barely enough time to get the result. That Friday I catch the subway to campus and it's atrociously slow. I'll admit I should have planned for this, the subway here is always behind. Anyway, I end up slightly late getting to campus, so I literally run to the police station and enter the front room at exactly 5 minutes after my appointment time. I know this because, as I stepped through the door, I felt my phone buzz with what turned out to be a "your appointment has been cancelled" email. I speak to the security/cop behind bulletproof glass inside and I learn the appointment was cancelled after he checks my confirmation number. Apparently, that they are automatically cancelled if you're not checked in within 5 minutes. Obviously, this is outrageous, but I'm usually a patient guy. I ask if I can book a new appointment. That's no good since it would have to be Monday or later. So I grab a coffee from across the street and return to sit inside the police station to try and solve this with some Googling while I slip into a more and more frantic state of frustration. I can't find anywhere in the city that can fingerprint me before Monday. But here's what really pushed me over the edge. While I'm sitting there, at this point 30 minutes past my appointment time, someone else comes in for fingerprints. She shows up 5 minutes early. They take her in immediately, and she's out before her appointment was even scheduled to begin. The entire thing took her about 2 minutes. I point out to the cop behind the glass, as politely as I can, that clearly someone could see me right now because her appointment is already over. Why can't I have the current slot? But the cop insists that since my appointment was cancelled, my registration info was no longer in the system and I can't be seen today. That's when the idea comes to me and I confirm with him that showing up early is not a problem, because they would have my appointment and registration info in the system. You see where I'm going with this. So I quietly sit back down and take out my phone. About 10 minutes later, I calmly approach him again and say, "Hello, I have a new appointment to be fingerprinted. I'm about 72 hours early." I have never seen such an exasperated sigh in my life. But he checked my new confirmation number and everything was in order. Within 10 minutes, I was walking back out after getting fingerprinted. At least he didn't try to fight with you about it. I wouldn't have considered that. Oh, definitely, I wasn't really sure it would work. I think he was mostly just sick of me at that point though. Yeah, my first thought was, we can't allow you in more than 24 hours before your appointment. Most secure locations I have come across follow a policy like that. This one sounds like both of you are maliciously complying with regulations from the faceless bureaucracy, like I suspect the system somehow just wouldn't take your prints if you didn't have a, not cancelled, appointment, but once there was a way to do it the officer went along. True. It was actually on his computer, but I'm sure it wasn't his own personal rule. So either it was actually impossible to register me day of, or he was really trying to enforce a ridiculous policy. I don't feel like it's a good fit for this sub, because neither of them were malicious. They both just complied, and OP found a loophole. Nothing malicious about that. What I'm curious about is if that guy ever told any other customers about that trick in the future. I'm sorry your appointment was automatically cancelled. Unfortunately, since your appointment was cancelled, you're no longer in the system and I cannot process you. However, if you book an appointment for any future time, you'll be back in the system. You can even come early to that appointment. Very early. Days early. Higher up got wind of this and likely changed it to same day early shows only, just because they are in charge and that's the way it is. I was waiting for some sort of I stole a pen so they had to book me and take my prints, but this is much better. That guy was just sick of people turning up 15 minutes late and delaying everyone, but if it only takes 2 minutes then it doesn't seem like being a few minutes late would mess with the schedule. Crazy but amazing story. Love it. Opa's potatoes. When I was a little girl, I was pretty sickly. I often was sent home early from school with fevers caused by tonsillitis or strep throat. One day when I was about 7, I had a fever and had to be sent home again. My mother was unable to come get me, so she asked her father, my Opa, to do it. This was an unusual circumstance. Opa was a mean old bastard and no one in the family really liked him. He was a hard German war veteran who didn't mind slapping kids around or scaring the bejesus out of them. He took me back to his house and told me to start helping him make dinner even though I was sick. We were going to make split pea soup and I needed to start by washing and peeling potatoes for him. I put the potatoes in a bowl, filled it with water, and started scrubbing. He was sitting on a kitchen chair with a colander in his lap, not particularly paying attention to what I was doing, and told me to pour the potatoes into the colander so I could get started with washing them. I looked back at my bowl of potatoes submerged in dirty water and said, Opa, that's not a good idea. Opa, who never liked to be told what is and isn't a good idea, screamed at me to put the potatoes in the F***king colander, motioning to the very colander sitting in his lap. I had a choice to make. I could explain the situation and avoid the fiasco. Or I could just do exactly what he told me to. So I shrugged and said okay, and dumped the entire bowl of potatoes and dirty water into the colander. As I'm sure you can all imagine, the cold dirty water spilled all over that mean old curmudgeon and his kitchen floor. Opa sat there, dumbfounded and covered in dirty potato water, for what felt like hours. I also stood there, stupidly gawking in front of him in horror, the now empty bowl still upside down in my hands. Then he did what I never would have expected, and started laughing. Somehow that was far more terrifying than if he exploded like I expected him to. He told me to clean up the mess and get out of his sight. And that's the story of my plucky albeit foolish malicious compliance and possibly my first brush with death, haha. Being mean is not the same as being stupid. He understood why it happened and who was at fault. The fact that you complied exactly the same way a soldier would have is probably what got him. Yeah, he definitely realized he messed up. Way too proud and stubborn to ever admit it, but we definitely both knew, haha. Why is it when they laugh instead of scream, it's hair-raising? Just pure cognitive dissonance. Sure, he was laughing, but I could see the murder in his eyes. He was furious. Good on both of you. What was your relationship like after that? Just curious. I know a lot of crusty old folks adore the one family member who stood up to them. I read German war veteran and instantly thought of my Oma and the pain and suffering that was brought upon her and the family from her alcoholic, abusive, PTSD husband who was in the Wehrmacht between 41 and 45. Ah. Your Oma and my Oma had a lot in common, I see. You have my sympathy. I'm sorry your family had to go through all of that. I know how ugly it got for ours. I thank my lucky stars that I'm the baby of my family's generation and wasn't around to see the worst of it. You brought joy to your Opa that day. He probably saw what you did and remembered doing something similar when he was a child. You know, I read this reply and thought about it. I'm thinking as hard as I can and can't remember any other time I've ever heard that man laugh. What a weird bonding experience. I will report every bathroom break, of course. So several years ago, I worked for the worst boss ever. I was working as a teacher at a preschool. I had 28 students in my class, ages 4 to 5. I had no assistant at any time of the day. So this meant I had to do quite a lot of tasks all at once, by myself. One of these things were bathroom breaks. The bathroom had a half wall, boys on one side and girls the other. This way the teacher can supervise all learners at once. I had a very well-oiled routine with my class at bathroom breaks. I'll explain in detail here. If you don't want to read, skip to the next paragraph. So I had 2 lines, boys and girls. They lined up at opposite sides so that they could not see into the other toilet. Kids go in 4 at a time. Once you're done, you sit on the floor in the doorway until everyone is done. This way I could keep my eyes on almost every child at all times. The doors were always open so I could run out if needed. I jumped over the half wall if needed. And basically I had everyone within a few meters of myself. This entire routine took about 10 minutes. I did my routine once every hour. Kids could go to the bathroom by themselves in between bathroom breaks. There were no issues. My boss comes shouting into my class one day, "A girl in my class has had an accident. She wet herself while on her way to the bathroom." My boss shouted about this girl wetting her pants in front of all my students, who were having free play. The kids were all silent. She screamed at me and I just tried to explain that she was on her way, she just didn't make it and our next bathroom break was in 10 minutes. She continued shouting at me. I waited for her to finish screaming and asked if the child who wet herself had been helped to change. She says no, I have to go do it. I cannot leave my learners unsupervised, so I ask if she could please keep an eye on my class while I change the student into dry clothes. She looks me in the eye and says, "No. Your whole class is having a bathroom break now. And from now on you go every 20 minutes. Bathroom break, the whole class, every 20 minutes. I just nodded my head and told my learners pack up time. She said to leave the class as is and go to the bathroom. The kids line up at the class door. Then we walk outside a few meters to the lockers. We line up again while I collect new clothes. Then we walk to the bathroom and do the routine as above, plus I need to change my student into dry clothes. It was a nightmare. I checked the clock when we left and made a mental note to come back in 20 minutes. And I did. Every 20 minutes. The problem is, the bathrooms get cleaned every 30 minutes, so oftentimes we would have to wait outside because the bathroom was wet. Other classes needed to use the toilet, but we were constantly in there. We walked to the toilet and just walked back if no one said they needed the bathroom. By the end of the day, they were so sick of going to the toilet, 1 p.m/ish. The next morning we continued the routine. That meant that sometimes parents came to drop off and there was no one to welcome them or watch their child. Or that parents were still trying to do a handover and then it's been 20 minutes so it's time for bathroom break. We started our morning circle ring and went to the bathroom. We read a story and went to the bathroom. We had free play and bathroom. Every 20 minutes. Everyone in that school was so annoyed with me. Everyone knew it was ridiculous. But I told them that's what boss lady said so. That afternoon a schedule was sent out as to when every class may use the bathroom, scheduling the bathroom breaks and cleaning breaks for all the classes. And wouldn't you know it, my class was scheduled for once every 60 minutes. Ha! After reading the entire story, the one thing that sticks with me is how incredibly inappropriate it is to give a dressing down to an employee in front of children, much less yelling. Did any of the parents complain about their children potentially being traumatized? So was it 20 minutes between the end of a bathroom break and the beginning of another bathroom break? As I would have taken that as 20 minutes start to start. That way you can stretch each break to 20 minutes to get the kids through it and just stay in the bathrooms all day. Power trip. Those with a big ego and little control will exercise every last ounce of it to make themselves feel important. That's when you call up your boss and say there is a problem as you do not have enough time slotted in for bathroom breaks. Insist on how she pointed out it being necessary, and how you haven't had an issue since, so you don't feel comfortable switching back. Force them to admit it was a stupid idea, and then force them to apologize by continuing to play ignorant to any kind of reasonable claim they might be making until they do so. 28 preschoolers seems like way too many for one teacher. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.